On the 1st of August 2004, the Ycuá Bolaños supermarket in Asunción, Paraguay, opened for business as usual. It was set to be a busy day, with around 1,000 shoppers filling the modern multi-level store. At around 11:19 a.m., however, the normal, sunny, unremarkable Sunday would take a hellish turn. Nearly half of those shopping at Ycuá Bolaños would never leave the supermarket alive. The Ycuá Bolaños supermarket in Asunción was constructed in 2001 and was therefore one of the most modern shopping centres in the city in 2004. It had a footprint of just over 4,000 square metres or 43,000 square feet and sold a wide range of goods. Its mainstay was groceries, but shoppers could also purchase from a range of household goods and clothing. It could be accessed by foot, but also included an indoor parking area on the ground floor and in the basement, allowing shoppers to load purchases into their cars without setting foot outside. On the upper floor of the store was a large, air-conditioned food court and seating area, where shoppers would often eat lunch or stop for a drink while getting their groceries. 2 mezzanine areas accommodated extra seating for the food court and offices for the supermarket staff. On the 1st of August 2004, a Sunday, the supermarket was particularly busy. At maximum capacity, the building could hold around 1,400 people, and on this day there were by most counts at least 1,000 people present. As midday approached, many congregated in the upper floor food court for a midday meal. At around 11:19 a.m. in this crowded food court, a massive explosion took place. A fireball blasted down through the ceiling and engulfed a large section of seating. Almost instantly, panic took hold, as shoppers and diners attempted to flee. The supermarket had many regular exits and emergency exits, but it was quickly discovered that many of these were locked or barred. Security guards later reported that they had been told over their radios to lock exits in order to prevent people from fleeing the building with goods that had not yet been paid for. Most security guards in other areas of the building had not seen the fireball that consumed the food court. The fire alarm system within the building was not working. They did not know the seriousness of the situation. They locked the doors and diverted panicked shoppers to the main entrance and exit, with some even instructing them to queue up and pay before leaving. As the fire began to spread, most doors remained locked or blocked. Several survivors later recalled a security guard firing his pistol into the air to prevent people pushing past him to exit the burning building. Survivor Rose Reskin later reported that she heard a member of staff shouting, "Nobody gets out of here without paying." And another survivor reported being instructed to put his purchases through a checkout even while burning debris fell from the ceiling. The fire consumed the food court and spread through the air conditioning system of the building. In this way, it reached the basement, where heat and flames ignited several parked cars. Their petrol tanks exploded, and other cars caught fire in turn. The violent explosions that followed caused part of the ground floor to collapse downward into the basement, trapping and crushing visitors in their cars, and further closing off several possible escape routes. There were now still at least 700 people inside the burning store, and extremely limited routes for them to escape by. A huge plume of smoke was now rising over the building. Passers-by outside attempted to break down doors, and even used rocks and other objects to break through a glass block wall and provide an escape for those they could hear screaming inside. The fire service was called and was quickly on scene. They fought the flames as best they could while also attempting to rescue people trapped in the building. One fire chief later reported that he was threatened by an armed shopping centre security guard, who told him not to damage a locked door he was trying to open. Getting survivors out of the building was an almost hopeless task. The fire spread with astonishing rapidity, engulfing the entire supermarket in a matter of minutes. Dozens of cars in the parking lot exploded, and flammable stock including aerosols and domestic gas cans added significant fuel to the fire as flames consumed the ground floor. Some materials used for the interior finish of the supermarket produced thick, toxic black smoke when burned, further reducing the chances of survival for anyone inside. By the time the fire service did get the flames under control, it was clear that there had been an enormous number of casualties. Over the next few days, one charred body after another was removed from the burned shell of the supermarket. The death toll rose into the hundreds. In places, firefighters encountered what they later described as a carpet of bodies, all tangled together and sometimes chest deep. Extracting bodies and sending them to one of several nearby makeshift morgues for identification was grim work. During this time, however, there were some small miracles. Some of those who were rescued from inside the building survived despite extensive burns, and at least 2 people were pulled alive from piles of burned bodies. They had been buried beneath the bodies of fallen victims when the fire consumed the area they were in, and these bodies had provided insulation against the flames, allowing them to survive. The scale of the disaster made an exact death toll difficult to determine, but it was found that at least 424 people had been killed, with a further 360 suffering severe injuries. It was the worst peacetime disaster ever to take place in the modern history of Paraguay. An investigation sought to determine the source of the fire. It was discovered to be a chimney in the supermarket's food court. This chimney, situated just above a frequently used barbecue grill, was designed in such a way that it was very difficult, if not impossible, to fully clean. Because of this, it had not been cleaned. Grease and soot had built up day by day, until finally the interior of the chimney was caked in this flammable mixture. On the day of the disaster, it had caught fire and burned for several hours, unnoticed, the flames contained within the chimney. The fire grew and burned hotter, eventually splitting the metal skin of the chimney and allowing hot, flammable exhaust gases to spill into the ceiling void above the food court. Ventilation in this area was extremely poor. Flammable gases accumulated, swirled, and grew hotter until the temperature increased to the point that, with a violent explosion, they ignited and sent a fireball into the crowded food court below. The source of the fire was thus determined, but many survivors and the families of the deceased were more interested in the answer to a different question. Why had the doors been locked? Had they not been locked, many of those who died would undoubtedly have survived. Ultimately, the owners of the supermarket, Juan Pio Paiva and his son Victor Daniel Paiva, were found responsible for the order to close the doors. A security guard who had acted on this order despite having at least some awareness of the fire, Daniel Arico, was also found responsible, along with one majority shareholder in the business, Humberto Casaquilla. During initial criminal proceedings, it was announced that the men would be sentenced for involuntary manslaughter, a crime which carried a maximum sentence of 5 years in prison. When this decision was announced, there was instant uproar. Strident protests led to furniture being thrown, and then to a brawl in the courtroom which spilled out onto the street and became a fully fledged riot. The people of Asuncion were, it was clear, not going to tolerate this particular sentence. The police controlled the riots, but a low level of unrest continued until a retrial was arranged. This time, the defendants were charged with the more serious crime of negligent homicide. After a lengthy trial, the owners were sentenced to between 10 and 12 years in prison, the security guard to 5, and the shareholder to 2.5. All were released early, after serving only a portion of their sentence. The gutted supermarket, the place where more than 400 people had lost their lives on what had seemed like an ordinary Sunday, was partially demolished, and a striking memorial was constructed in its place, along with a cultural centre that serves the community to this day. Parts of the original building were preserved by the design. Today, the disaster is still vivid in the memory of the citizens of Paraguay. The worst loss of life in peacetime in living memory, caused by a combination of a lack of maintenance and a decision to prioritize the protection of profits over the preservation of human lives.